Welcome to Powered by Snowflake, a series where I interview technology leaders building applications and businesses on Snowflake. I'm your host, Daniel Myers, and today I'm talking with Karen Jenkins, Head of Product at Elementum. Elementum is a cloud-native, data-driven workflow platform powered by Snowflake. Karen, how are you today?
Great. Thanks for having me.
I am really excited to have you in the studio today and learn all about Elementum. Tell me in your own words, what is a data-driven workflow platform?
So what we do is we take the data from Snowflake and we allow customers to mine that data for anomalies to take action on, and then we orchestrate the business process workflow associated with that action. So we think of it as kind of extending business intelligence to the next level. So instead of just, showing insights, we mine for those insights and then we automate and orchestrate the actions that are required.
That's awesome. So Tell me more about the history of Elementum. When was it founded and what's the background there?
Great. Yes. So we were founded about 10 years ago as a supply chain visibility platform. And what that means is we were providing data to supply chain organizations, such as, your shipment locations, your inventory locations, your inventory positions. And what we realized was that was very, very data intensive. And we were a software company and we were spending a lot of our time, resources, and energy on doing integrations. So we had a large professional services organization and it was, extremely difficult. So in about 2018, 2019, we began to do what we called incident management at the time. Frank Slootman is one of our board members. We're very proud of that. And he joined in 2018. So at that time, we were beginning to round out our workflow capabilities. And then, of course, in 2020, COVID hit. And all of our customers, we had a lot of many, Fortune 50 customers, Starbucks, et cetera. And when that hit, we started creating war rooms for all of these we all know what the COVID did to the supply chain, right? So we were managing all of their disruptions, whether they were, their late shipments or doing expedites, et cetera. We just stood up all of these war rooms in 2020, and it was very, very successful. So what we decided to do in 2021 was, now that Snowflake had addressed the data issue and separated the data and compute, we did not need to concentrate on that anymore. What we needed to do was to build an application, a cloud-native application that sat on top of Snowflake so that we didn't need to do the integrations. We would just connect to the data and be able to orchestrate the workflow from there. So we re-architected in 2021, and we're now a cloud-native platform.
That is fantastic.
Yeah.
I love hearing how you've been able to really build this impact during COVID. You mentioned that you have some big, Fortune 50 customers. Tell me more about the scale, both of the product, how much data are you doing, but also the scale of the company. When was your latest funding round and kind of where are you as a company?
We've got, as I said, a lot of large customers that transitioned with us from doing supply chain visibility to data-driven workflows. And what we've recently deployed is the ability to kind of mine that data. And that's where, these customers are going on this journey with us. So now that they have their workflows orchestrated, they are now bringing more and more data. So think of the data as things like just basic foundational data of an organization that comes in. So those are low volume data things, but they're very important. Like where are all of your locations? Where are all of your sites? What does your product catalog look like? What are your employees, et cetera? So we take all of that, and then we also add to that all of your transactional data. So then you bring all of your purchase orders, all of your shipments, all of that large volume data over into Snowflake. And the beauty is, because we just connect to the data and we don't move it, for the first time ever, our customers can now, as they're trying to solve an operational problem, like heated in the moment, they can see all of the data that they need. They don't have to swivel seat and log into, their SAP to look at their order data. It's just visible to them within our platform because it's in Snowflake.
That is beautiful. And you mentioned that you connect to the data. Can you tell me more? What do you mean by that?
So what we do is through, obviously, secure capabilities, we have credentials and authentication to connect to a warehouse and a database in Snowflake. I'll show that to you in my demo. It's very easy to do. Once you set up that connection, we now have the ability to bring in any table in that environment to be visible within Elementum. So the reason why we like to say we're a connected app, right? We're connected is because you no longer have to ingest all of that data into the platform. It's visible from a user perspective. It looks like they don't know. They can't tell the difference because we have some data that might be within our Snowflake instance and some that's in their Snowflake instance, and they can't tell the difference.
That is a pretty powerful architecture. And so with a connected app architecture, what is the difference between a connected app and a traditional or legacy managed app? And what are some of the benefits and pros and cons of each?
So when you think of a managed app like SaaS 2.0, you're still doing all of that data ingestion. So you're still spending, that's what Elementum, 1.0 was, right? We were a managed app. We had lots of API integrations to lots of different carriers, lots of different systems. All of that time and energy that's required to do those integrations and all the cost required to duplicate, triplicate, take that same piece of data and put it into 10 different apps, you no longer need to do that. So you save time and you save actual cost.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And so show me now a broad architectural diagram of you mentioned this is a connected app. Can you show me in an architectural diagram how that works?
Sure, I'd love to. What I'm going to show you is a use case because it's always nice to kind of understand the business problem that you're trying to solve. So we're solving lead time optimization, and this is a very real challenge for large, retail and CPG customers where what they do is they define a lead time. So it's the time that it takes for a product to go from China to the US, right? And they define what that lead time is. So is that 60 days? They'll say, okay, for this lane, from this origin to destination, we're saying it's going to take 60 days. And what that does is all of the planning around their products and their inventory uses that 60 days. And if that 60 days is incorrect, you've got a lot of cost associated with that. So if it truly is 30 days, then you've got 30 days worth of inventory that is just kind of, sitting in the warehouse and not being able to be used, or you've got to do a lot of transfers or a lot of things to get that inventory moving. So what we do is we do lead time optimization, and that's kind of the use case that I will focus on today. All right, well, lead time optimization obviously begins with the data, right? So it begins with, having data in SAP. This is your, typical purchase order data, sales order data, as well as that lead time number that I mentioned before. It is stored in there for every lane or every, origin destination pair. And then you've got, other data that complements that, whether, your shipment data, whether it's in your data warehouse or some other system. We take all of that data, and obviously that data then gets loaded into Snowflake. And in Snowflake, then we've got tables that have all of the lanes with the estimated transit time, the ETT, as well as shipments with the actual transit time. So this is where we then can begin to look at what the plan time is with what the actual time is and identify when there's some big discrepancies there. So Elementum does our direct connection. We call it Cloud Link. So we then connect to Snowflake and we do data mining. And with our data mining, all of the data that is in Snowflake, we create dynamic relationships between those data elements. So in this case, you've got, lanes that are related to shipments, and we do that dynamic matching automatically for the customer. And then we look at the table that is the result of that join, and we say, hey, when the actual performance of this lane is within a certain variance, we want to take note of that. So in this case, if it's, 30 days or we're viewing it every 30 days, then we say, hey, if that transit time is 15% different, then we want to take action. And we want to launch what we call like a lead time optimization workflow. And from there, we've got a lot of automation that we can do within that business process itself. The record gets automatically created from our automation engine, and then it gets automatically assigned to the analyst who can then review what that performance is and then send an approval request to the logistics manager to say, hey, we want to adjust this lead time. Is it approved? The the logistic manager approves it, all within our workflow platform. And then we can do closed loop and write back to SAP.
Beautiful. And, I love that you make this a more tangible example by giving a lead time optimization example of an architecture for this. The question I have here is, it really seems like you needed a platform like Snowflake that could enable you to build these vertical or domain-specific areas, while the platform, underlying data platform, Snowflake, can span across all of these ones and enable you to build these domain-specific solutions.
Yes, absolutely. We are a platform. So there's really, the possibilities are endless. Any data that's in Snowflake, we can orchestrate a business process on it. But we've got an application team that has subject matter expertise in these domain areas so that we can really accelerate things for customers, because we have these pre-built application packages with all of the connections, all of the automations already made, and then the customer just comes in and tweaks it to their specific needs.
Yeah, that's really cool to see, because that's a lot of people, I think, don't realize how challenging it can be to have a general platform that can laser in and solve specific domain problems. That's kind of two areas, both depth and breadth there.
Yes.
So it's cool to see that.
A blank canvas is hard for people, yes. Right? They need to actually see how it can be used.
Absolutely. And you mentioned that this is a connected app, and that's a very, very cool to see that, how you're able to build a connected app on Snowflake. Can you dive into that a little more?
For us, we've got obviously a very strong relationship with Snowflake. And I think this diagram is probably pretty familiar with a lot of people. But for those who aren't familiar with it, you've got your Snowflake organization and your customer account with all of your different warehouses and tables. And you simply create an account for Elementum with the right access. So read, write, because we can also write back to Snowflake as well. And then once we set up those credentials, then we've got access to all of those tables, and then we can connect to those tables and view the data. And I'll show you all of that in the demo.
Amazing. And, I love this connected app architecture for a couple reasons. One, it gives the Elementum customer the ability to, control their data. They have that fine-grained control and access permissions that Snowflake provides out of the box. So they get to define exactly what rows and columns Elementum has access to. At the same time, they can do literal SQL joins with the data that Elementum is putting back in with other data that they may have for their own product.
Yep.
And so I think it is one of those features that is a true network effect for both businesses building out connected apps and their customers. So it's cool to see how something like this has been implemented in the real world.
Yeah, absolutely. We have a lot of CPG and retail customers with sensitive data, so they love the security around Snowflake, and they love the fact that, hey, if we're connected to some of that sensitive data, and if for some reason they wanted to, they were concerned, they simply remove our access, and poof, the data's gone. Right? I mean, it's just it's all there.
So from here, let's make it real. I want to see it.
Let's dive in.
Yeah.
Let's dive in. All right. Where I'm going to begin is with the user perspective and kind of show you what they see when they log in, and then I'll progress to what the admin sees. But to note, our whole platform was designed for the business analyst. So it's no code, and you'll see that when we get to the admin interface. But what you see here is, I'm a logistics analyst. I'm responsible for monitoring these lanes and the performance of these lanes. And they log in and they see all of these widgets, very front and center, so that they know what they need to worry about. They can be modified, changed. The sizes can be changed. It can be however they want to configure it. The dashboard's fully configurable. And from there, they then, drill in to see, okay, now this is the work that's assigned to me. And they have this type of view, which gives them a little bit more detail. It shows them the priorities. And this is showing them, that data mining that I mentioned. Anytime there's an anomaly, a record is created. A lead time optimization record is created and assigned to one of those analysts. So this is showing those for me, because this is the work that's assigned to me. And then what I do is I look at one of these specific records, and there's a lot of detail there. You've got your process, high-level process workflow here, which again is fully customizable, but we have it all available out of the box, and then the customers can modify it. So if they want to add another stage, they can. If they want to add some additional automations, they can. You can see an approval here. The other important thing is this conversation space over here. And something that Elementum has done is we've kind of taken the data sharing concept and applied it to a business process. So you can share this particular record. We're investigating, lead time for lane 54. And if they want to reach out to a carrier, they can do that through this conversation. It's very secure, and that carrier then only has access to this one record and to the information that you want them to see within that record. So we are doing process sharing at the individual, process instance area. And then you've got your approvals that you can set up. This whole layout is fully customizable. You can see the financials that are associated with this. So, what is your inventory cost per day? If we reduce the lead time here, what's our actual, hard dollar, cost savings? What are maybe some recurring savings that we have? We capture all of that and kind of automate that ROI right within the application. And then the other very, very valuable thing, I'm not going to walk through it all, is our relationships. So I mentioned when I went through the architecture that we have these dynamic relationships. And what this allows you to do is build out this map here for the analyst. So they're evaluating this lane. There are multiple shipments that are using this lane, and they can look at each one of those shipments and what their actual transit time was. Then they can look at what's on those shipments. And so in this example, they're looking at a specific shipment, and they can look at the purchase order line items. And so this is the real power here, is now we are looking directly at the purchase orders. And this data is all in Snowflake. But as I mentioned, the user can't tell. But what they love is the fact that they don't have to log into another system to get at the information that they need to be able to make their decision quickly. And then, of course, once they make that decision and they get the approval, then we do the update out. So this record allows them to manage all of their work, manage all the communication around that work, and also, automate as much of it as possible. All right, Daniel, on that note, I'd like to show you our admin capabilities because, as I mentioned, we are really designed for the business. So I'm going to start with the data and the cloud credential capability. And as you can see, this is pretty easy for them to do. They simply come in and connect to Snowflake and provide their Snowflake credentials here and save it. And then at that point in time, they now are fully secure and authenticated to connect to the tables. And then what our customers do is they then, connect to the tables that they need to. And what you're seeing here are all of the tables that we use for our logistics application suite. And this little snowflake here is telling you that that table is powered by Snowflake.
I love that.
And then, from a user perspective, we saw it a little bit in that detailed record. But what you see here, this is purchase order line items. So we've got a lot of transactional data in the system. And this is showing you all of that data. And again, this data is in Snowflake and just being viewed here. And then the other thing we talked about from a security perspective is obviously you're granted those credentials, which are very secure. Elementum can also lay on top of that additional access policies, which a lot of our customers use because they may have a product table for their whole business unit, but they want to filter that for each particular business unit. So they want business unit A to only see their products and business unit B to only see theirs. So we can do further restriction with our access policies. And again, just like everything else, it's very easy for them to set up, add a policy, add the filtering capabilities, etc. The dynamic relationships is one of the real powers of the platform, and it's very easy to configure. So what you're seeing here is a shipment record that is dynamically related to the milestones. So those are your carrier events and updates against that shipment, the lanes, which we've been talking about, what's on the shipment, and who's providing it. So you can see cross shipments, all of the different data elements that it is dynamically connected to. And again, very easy to set up. You just pick your table, your object. We try and use non-technical terms, right, in the platform. And then the last thing I want to show is the automations. The automations is where we will do, our data mining that will automatically create the record and then be able to, send notifications, do approvals, or do this API out. And again, very, very easy to use here. So if you wanted to come in and edit one of these, you could edit it and modify, your triggers, your conditions. Maybe you need to adjust the API out. But again, you can do it very, very easily. And then when you look at the application record itself, so we kind of began here with the user perspective and lead time optimization. And I mentioned that was all very highly configurable. This is where they do it. So they can come in here. If they want to rename the stages, they can just come in here and change the names very easily. They can add additional fields just by drag and dropping them over, dynamically change the layout. It's just very powerful, but very easy to use.
This is a very powerful platform that you've built, and one that is, from what I see here, incredibly dynamic in the different things that it can do, but at the same time, it is specific enough to provide this instant value to the business analysts that are using it. So that the technology platform needed to build something like this. Tell me more about how and why specifically did you choose Snowflake to build this platform on?
Because of obviously the separation of the data and compute. So the Elementum compute that is also running on Snowflake. So not only do we have the ability to take advantage of all of the data, but obviously the compute power of Snowflake. And many times we say, hey, we're going to follow the data. So we're working with customers and we know their Snowflake roadmap, and then we work with them and show them kind of our library of applications and capabilities, and put a plan in place to make sure that investment that they've made in Snowflake is maximized, because now they can do all of these actions against that data.
So over the next 6 to 12 months, what would you say is one or two things that your customers should get most excited about?
They should get most excited about the native apps, having one place where they can download our application right in their Snowflake instance. As I mentioned, our customers are very business oriented. They're not technical people. So whatever we can do to make it easier, and a connected app makes it easier.
That's beautiful. And I am excited about that because as a Snowflake native application, that means that you're running directly inside of your customer Snowflake instances. It gives them the ability to simply click install, a typical application install experience, really simplifying that connected app architecture that you went over before. So I know I'm excited about that. That's going to be awesome. And so where should people go to learn more about Elementum?
To our website, of course, elementum.com.
That's fantastic. And so I want to say a big thank you for joining me in the studio today. It's been great learning all about the Elementum platform and the power that it brings to your customers and the level of dynamic nature that it's able to provide these very specific solutions to industry problems. It's been great having you.
It's been great being here. Thank you very much.
And to all of our viewers, if you want to learn more about how to build your next application or business on Snowflake, be sure and check out developers.snowflake.com. And if you want to see other interviews like this with technology leaders in the space, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. My name is Daniel Myers. This has been another episode of Powered by Snowflake. See you next time.